Hey, my name is Reece. In this video I'm going to be going over how to run your agency as a side hustle or while working a 9 to 5. If you're not familiar with myself, I'll give you a quick 10-second introduction because back in 2020 I was actually working a 9 to 5, which was very physically intensive. It was a retail job where I was selling tiles, and tiles can get very heavy when you're selling a bit. It wasn't a glamorous job, very, very tiring. I was building my agency in the evening on the weekends. And really in this video I'm just going to be showing you how I was able to actually escape that 9 to 5 situation. I say escape because obviously it's a situation I didn't want to be in. If you're watching this video, it would be the same case for you where you don't want to work the 9 to 5, you want to do your agency, and I'm going to give you the full roadmap for that to happen. So in usual fashion, I've blacked out everything. We're just going to go through this one-on-one. I'll talk you through it, give you some thoughts as I go along, and we'll take it from there. So very, very first thing, seems pretty simple, but most people don't actually know what they need to focus on. So the first step is just knowing what you need to focus on in the first place. I boiled this down to 4 things to keep it really, really simple for you. Of course, these 4 things can be expanded a little bit further, but these are the main topics that you need to be spending your limited time actually focusing on. Lead generation, lead nurture, lead conversion, and lead fulfillment. Now, lead generation, pretty simple. It's the generation of the leads. It's the lead sourcing. It's getting hold of these businesses, finding out who they are, not yet contacting, but just finding out who they are, getting their contact information, finding the businesses in the first place that are pre-qualified. You know, they're more than likely a good fit for your service. That's the first step, is the lead generation. This is something that people often overlook. You know, they don't think about the quality, but it really does matter, and it affects the rest of your system and the way that you book meetings. Next is lead nurture. This is actually the vehicle, whatever you're using, to actually get them to have a conversation with you. It's the nurturing of the lead. It's informing them about yourself. This part here is basically the appointment setting. In some cases, especially the students that come through my mentorship and the way that we do it at my own e-com agency, is essentially the way that we do lead nurture is we got email and we got organic marketing, and we use those two to link together. I'm not going to speak about that too much in this video because I've got tons of others that go over both email and organic marketing that you can find on my YouTube or my Facebook, depending on which platform you're watching this on as well. So you can go ahead and have a look at those. But essentially, the lead nurture is the appointment setting. It's just contacting a business and getting them onto a call. And once you've got them onto the call, the next step is the lead conversion. It's the sales call. Pretty simple as to what it is. Obviously, it's a sales call. You tell them a little about yourself. Most importantly, you find out something about them. If you can help them, you make an offer, and that's your sales call. And then lastly is your fulfillment. Fulfillment is something that people don't really tend to think about. It's really strange in this space where everybody speaks about booking meetings, but nobody wants to talk about the fulfillment. It's incredibly important, especially if you're doing your agency as a side hustle or really working your 9 to 5. By the way, I don't like the idea of doing your agency as a side hustle. I really just mean if you're doing it on the side of a 9 to 5 or something like that, or you've got some other big project or big business or something like that, and you're starting up an agency. But yeah, I really don't like the idea of doing it as a side hustle, because really if you're building an agency, you should be doing it long term. But really, these are the only areas that you need to be focusing on right now, and really everything else is noise. You want to keep this as simple as possible. If you are quote-unquote time poor, but you have money, well, you need to value your time over your money, because that's what you have less of. So really the way that you should be spending your time is just on these 4 things. If you spend your time on these 4 things, what's going to happen is you're going to be booking meetings, and most importantly, you're going to actually be able to fulfill the promise that you're selling when you do book those meetings. So that's number 1. It's just knowing what you need to focus on. Now you know what you need to focus on, you just need to go ahead, need to find your way that you're going to do lead generation, find your way that you're going to nurture it and do the appointment setting, find the way that you're going to manage your sales call, and then also find the way that you're going to manage your fulfillment. Now, if you're really, really early in your agency journey, of course, there's a bit that comes first, which is just the foundations, knowing your niche, knowing your pricing, knowing a little bit about the service delivery, etc. But that's kind of involved here either way. But that's something that, if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you already are fully aware of that. So I'm kind of skipping the niche, skipping the pricing, but it is something that, of course, you need to be aware of. Second is time allocation. First thing, use a calendar. You know, when I was younger, when I was starting my agency, my first agency, when I was 17, I was really against this because I felt like calendars for old people or older people. I mean, I'm 22 right now, approaching 23, so I'm not really old, but you get the point. But the really basic idea here is just use a calendar. And make sure you slot everything in here, including sleep and meal times. Now, you can change this around slightly. If your meal time is supposed to be, say, 7 p.m., but on one day you're really hungry at 5 p.m. and you want to eat earlier, you can go ahead and move it on the calendar. But the main reason that we want to use the calendar, especially in the very beginning, is really just so you can find your optimized schedule. Now, I still do this myself. Some days I've got a schedule that I want to follow to, but when it gets to the day, I get like a creative burst earlier in the morning, and then I want to do my content earlier in the morning. Or maybe the flip side, I want to do something else in the morning and do my content later in the day. But the idea is that you are able to have the calendar. You can move some things around, but the important part is that it gets done. If you move things around, that's fine if it's about just optimizing your schedule further. But the most important thing is once it's on your calendar or your schedule or whatever you want to call it, you can make sure that it actually gets done. And that is the important thing, is making things are getting done. Now, what you're going to be able to do with a calendar, if you've got everything allocated, is you can allocate a very specific time every day for your agency work. And really, I'm going to recommend that you need at least 2 to 4 hours, either in the morning before or the evening after work. Now, in terms of working on the weekends, keep it basic, keep it easy. During the evenings, you've got other tasks, but during the weekends, we want to really be doing like lead sourcing or first line writing. And that's kind of a really easy task to do on the weekend. I'm going to speak a little bit more about the lead sourcing in a moment, but if you are doing it yourself, do it on the weekend. And then on the weekends, also just upload your leads, so they will, like to Lemlist, they will automatically send throughout the week while you're at work. And then in your evenings, all you have to do is work on improving the campaigns, which, to be honest, you could probably do on the weekends as well, or your days off. If you don't have days off on the weekend, which was the case for me, every week I worked at least one day of the weekend at my 9 to 5. Basically, whichever 2 or how many days you get off a week, use those to just kind of put in a little bit of work, but of course, you want to appreciate that it is your weekend, it is your time off. So don't work too much, still just do at least 2 to 4 hours. And just make sure that that's kind of getting done on the weekend, and then enjoy the rest of your day. Now, make sure that your fulfillment is outsourced and managed while you're at work. So while you're at work at 9 to 5, if you have a client already, your fulfillment is completely outsourced. You don't need to worry about that. And your sole focus is on outreach and fulfillment management. Fulfillment management means hiring contractors and client communication. It does not mean, if you're offering Facebook or TikTok ads or whatever it is, email marketing, doesn't mean that you're actually fulfilling the service. It just means you're managing it. You're making sure that you have a contractor. You're making sure that the contractor is good and providing results. You're making sure that the contractor is being in constant communication with yourself and the client. And also just making sure that you are also in contact with the client, making sure that they're happy, they know how everything's going on, etc., etc. Now, really what we want to do is just focus on sales and outsource all else. So the main sales tasks are these ones here: lead sourcing, first line writing, email optimization, content and relationship building, and sales calls. Pretty simple. Now, in terms of lead sourcing, I genuinely believe that you should outsource this first more than anything. It is such a, respectfully speaking, it's such a low value task, meaning that you can literally you can pay between 10 to 30 cents per lead. And like, if you can get it at that amount, but then it takes you maybe like 3 to 5 minutes to find, like, my opinion, it makes way more sense to go ahead and just outsource it. Especially if you're getting it at such good rates, between 10 to 30 cents, which I get. I actually get mine for about 10 cents. By the way, these are qualified leads because I give the people a criteria to follow, and make sure it gets followed. And my leads are good quality, but they're also super cheap, and it's not something that I should really be spending my time doing, especially if I'm working a 9 to 5, which in case you will be right now. Now, as I said, you want to outsource the fulfillment completely, and you also want to maybe think about hiring a VA to handle execution on your outreach or other tasks. To be honest, this is not vital, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and say this is optional. The fulfillment is, you have to do it. You just have to. There's no arguments there. I'm going to give you a little analogy from my own experience in a second, but there's no arguing. Outsource the fulfillment at the very beginning. And then optionally, you can also hire a VA just to make sure that they're doing some things while you're working. That depends. If you've got a really, really tough schedule, then you want to hire a VA. If not, you want to at least just get your leads outsourced, lead sourcing outsourced. In terms of timing, if you have an issue with timing, then just take sales calls in different time zones. So you can still take the sales calls either early before work or late in the evening. If that's a problem for you, then you got to realign your goals and really what you want from the agency in the first place, because really your job as the agency owner is to manage the agency and take sales calls. And if you can't take sales calls, well, there's a problem there. If you're saying, oh, I could just get a closer, don't do it. You're definitely not going to get a good closer if you have an agency that's booking few meetings. Good closers want agencies or spaces or, services, businesses to work with, basically, that are actually getting good calls so they can make a decent amount of money. Respectfully speaking, if you're booking 2 to 3 calls a week or 2 to 3 calls a month, any good closer is not really going to want to work in that situation because they won't get paid what they truly deserve. Now, number 4, when to quit your job. If you actually follow these things right here, and it's really simple, what you need to focus on, your time allocation, and then obviously making sure that you get it done. I think we know that bit already. Just make sure you're actually doing the work. Then you want to kind of think about when you should be quitting. And when you have matched at least your salary, well, actually, let me preface this by saying this is entirely personal. I don't know your expenses. I don't know your current situation yourself. I can only speak from my experience. And the general recommendation is when you have at least matched your salary with your business in monthly recurring revenue, that's when you can consider leaving. But make sure, again, that you can just cover your expenses. Now, personally, I left when I had about 4 months of expenses saved up and was making more than my currently monthly expenses. I think I was making like 1.5 or nearly 2 times my monthly expenses. So there was some space there to work with. Now, the reason that I wanted to save up 4 months of expenses is because I had more things to pay. I live at home. Without giving too much detail, I live at home with my mother, but I split bills with her. I contribute, and I wanted to make sure that there was a good safety buffer there. And entirely honest, because I started my agency in 2017 and I ended up going full-time in 2020, I wasn't that confident, so I wanted to make sure there was a safety buffer to work with. Now, this will work best. This whole thing of working your agency while working a 9 to 5 will work best when you don't have people relying on you, such as kids, or, quite frankly, if you're not in a relationship. However, not to say that you have to break up if you are in a relationship, because I did it alongside, living with my girlfriend at the time. So you can do it if you're in a relationship. If you want to make those two things work, your business and your relationship, you can make it work. But I'm just saying, if you have the less things that you have to do, or less people relying on you, or whatever it may be, the easier it is going to be for you. But what we want to do is just make sure that we're setting very strong boundaries to make sure that you both understand, whether it's you and your partner, you and family members, or whatever it may be, that this, especially if it's a partner, that this is really just a temporary sprint for a few months. After that, you can quit your job, you can go full-time on your agency, which really only means working 4 to 6 hours a day. Of course, you could do a little bit more, but if you're doing it correctly, it's really probably only going to be 4 to 6 hour work days, where you can keep it really, really simple. Now, in a job, you have more financial assets than time, so use your financials to buy your time by delegating. I spoke of that briefly at the top, that you need to make sure that you're prioritizing correctly. If you've got more money than time, time is more valuable to you. Use your money sparingly. Of course, we want to be saving some, but the general recommendation there is don't think about saving money, think about making money. Think about how can you make the money that you need, not how can you how can you make the money that you need, not how can you save the money that you need, because the making will come quicker. Now, as for number 5, just kind of, this is like a bonus, just to kind of wrap up this video. I'm going to give you some cheat codes. Now, I started my agency back in 2017, but I wasn't actually making money until I started working with a coach back in 2020. As a side note, I actually couldn't afford his services then because I was trying to save up my money. I was doing it the wrong way. I'm doing it the way that I don't recommend you. I was really saving it from my my salary at my job for the most part. But really, we had a value exchange where I helped him with something. I actually provided a service for him, and in return, he coached me and helped me get more clients. And it was a good deal. We worked together, and through that work, I followed his techniques, and I signed my first few clients. Now, although I do not recommend this now, back then I was doing the fulfillment myself. And this meant that I had even more work to do. But since my margins were better, I was also able to build up the 4 months of expenses within just a couple of months. I can't give you an exact time frame, but it literally was between 30 and 60 days that I saved up that money and left. Now, my honest recommendation here is just to pick a couple of people that you like their content and follow everything they say, but limit this to 1 to 3 people. Anymore, you're just adding too much noise and complexity is the word. Now, if you're watching this video and you like my content, I would say take my content when it comes to appointment setting and fulfillment, because those are the 2 main things that I talk about. Okay, I talk about booking you 30 to 40 meetings a month plus, and automating your fulfillment, and through that scaling to 6 figures. Now, with that in mind, I don't really talk about sales. So go and pick somebody that talks about sales and that you love, and then go and, follow their content. And I don't talk about service delivery. If service delivery is something that you want to learn about, to be honest, I don't recommend that you should really learn too much about it. But if it is something that you want to learn about, then fine, go ahead, pick somebody that talks about your mechanism of service delivery and kind of follow their content. But the idea is just pick a few people. If you're watching me and then you're watching a bunch of other people that talk about appointment setting, it's going to get really cloudy, really, really noisy. And quite frankly, you're going to end up doing the wrong things because you're going to have shiny object syndrome. And you're going to be like, oh, why don't I start running Facebook ads so I can book meetings? And you're going to watch my content and be like, wow, cold email and organic marketing is working really, really well for Reece. And, the people that he's working with, let me do that, and et cetera, et cetera. Don't do that. Limit the people that you're listening to. Limit the content that you're digesting and go from there. Now, just to wrap up this video, that is pretty much everything that I wanted to speak about. Now, if you are looking to increase the amount of meetings that you're currently booking in your own agency and you would like some help with that, reach out to me via DM on Facebook or just comment. If you're watching this on Facebook, you can just comment below chat or something, and I would just send you over a message. We can have a short conversation, see if we would be a good fit to work together. And what I'll do is I'll help you scale your agency over the next 90 days. I do have a few people that I'm working with already that are currently and previously were in a 9 to 5. So I am familiar with the time allocation that's necessary and how different the schedule can be. But I've seen it happen through myself. I've seen it happen through students before. I know that it can happen. The thing is that you just need to go ahead, get started now. So again, if you would like a little bit more one-on-one support with that, you can just comment down below if you're watching on Facebook. Or if you're watching on YouTube, reach out to me on Facebook. The link's down below in the description. We can have a little chat and go from there. But aside from that, if you have any questions about this video, anything that you need more clarity on, let me know down in the comments. Again, whether that's on Facebook or YouTube, just let me know in the comments. I'll respond to every comment that I get. So that's pretty much it. Aside from that, I guess I'll see you again in the next video. If you're watching this on the weekend, I'm shooting this on Saturday. If you're watching it on the weekend, enjoy the weekend. Have a great week following, and I'll see you all soon.